Hello, I'm Peter Vandenberg, and this is my wife Lisa of 30 years marriage between us. And I have Parkinson's disease and have had it for a little more than 13 years. And the reason we're doing this video is to try and dispel the rather poor image that, or a fearful image that DBS has for Parkinson's patients, because I had the procedure and life has been a lot better for me, and that's the reason for this whole effort here. Anyway, Lisa and I have two sons, two lovely sons, Lewis and Harry, born about 1 year apart, and are now in their late 20s, so they're big boys now. We moved to Tampa, Florida on January 1st, 1992, and finally moved back to England in 2008 for health reasons. For both of our health reasons, actually. Lisa, perhaps more serious than mine, but that's another story. For 25 of our years together, Lisa and I were in the restaurant business. Wasn't that fun, darling?
Adorable, loved it.
And we were running our latest restaurant in Florida when all these health issues stuff started, right? My diagnosis of PD and Lisa's own complex health issues forced us to sell out, and since then I've partnered with my two sons in a local family investment fund, which enables me to work from home, which is great, I must say. The first time I realized something was wrong with my health was when I developed an increasingly stiff and painful right shoulder. This is how a lot of PD sufferers start off. They get, it seems like almost like a sports injury that turns into a tremor, which leads to...
Or like just a little tremor, like Michael J. Fox did.
Yeah. This was late in the year 2000, and I put it down to my quarterback attempts, throwing long balls to my two sons in the American football way, and I jarred my shoulder or something, and that's what I thought it was. Anyway, intermittent trembling resulted in that arm, in the right arm, which just got steadily worse throughout the next year or so, and despite long conversations with Lisa and her brother, who's a chiropractic doctor, we really weren't sure what the issue was, and we kept going to qualified, quite respectable neurologists who would have different views on it, you see. Prominent neurologists there, in fact, so I definitely did not have Parkinson's disease, and that it would dissipate, the tremor would dissipate. It didn't, and I was finally told by another neurologist that he had good news and bad news for me. And I played the game, and I said, "What's the bad news first?" And he said, "You have Parkinson's disease." That was the first time I'd ever heard anyone actually say it. Was a bit hard actually to swallow, but there we were.
Even though you sort of suspected.
Yeah. But he said the good news was tremor based, which meant apparently to him that it would take longer to
progress.
Yeah. The progression was slower, in other words, than with the dystonia based. And although I didn't leap around with joy at this, it was actually has proved to be true. It has been a slower progression. My wife and family, kids were of course shocked by the news, but it was somewhat tinged with relief that we had at last got a definitive diagnosis.
Do you want a sip?
Yeah, please, yeah.
Here.
I constantly have to have
He has to drink
my
a lot.
vodka.
Yeah, it is vodka, yeah.
Lisa and I are avid users of the internet. And we occupied ourselves for quite a while researching this disease. I soon discovered that the first thing I should do is not get on any medication for a while. And I didn't for nearly 3 years while we looked at all kinds of holistic treatments and this and that and all the
And I'm not going to talk about
praying mantises who hang around these poor hopeful souls looking for natural treatments for what is actually pretty unnatural disease.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway,
none of them really worked, and I started on a low dosage of the meds, essentially dopamine, from the year 2004, early in 2004. From the start, the meds worked very well for me, and I had what is termed a drug holiday for the following 6 or 7 years. During this period, the dopamine dosage was steadily increasing, and the efficacy was steadily decreasing, as Lisa will verify.
Totally.
By 2010, my symptoms were getting more and more difficult to control, and we began looking at potential next steps. I'd come across the deep brain stimulation technique while we were in Florida. They have centers of excellence where they were promoting the procedure. And I have to say that it did not appeal to me in the slightest. I have to say that, because they were talking about being awake during the procedure to see whether they were damaging any parts of my system while they're burrowing through my brain, and that didn't appeal to me in the slightest. And then
you thought of it as a last resort option?
Yeah, I did, and I really didn't want to even talk about it much, because
the words deep brain.
The words deep brain didn't appeal to me. They reverberated in a sinister way around my head. Didn't like the sound of it. I should perhaps explain here that my treatment to this point had been just popping pills, you see, and that was such an easy thing to get my head round. And all I had to do was take these pills, and I'd feel better, and everything was great. But as soon as you start talking about deep brain surgery with all the other bloody stuff that went with it, it was not. I would have to take a quantum leap, really, in my approach to this disease. Take it more seriously, really.
Also, the reason you had to think about this was because your neurologist said you have reached max out.
Yeah,
you've maxed out
on the drugs. Yeah, I had coasted along for some years taking pills that worked remarkably well for me.
And now they
I didn't want to think. Once Lisa moves the thing up so I can read it, I think that this lovely, simple method of symptom relief was coming to an end. I can now see in hindsight how my approach coloured the DBS options in such negative light. This opinion did a full 180-degree reversal, however, when we met with the NHS DBS team who were to form the operation.
Guzzle.
Fact was, I was getting fully anaesthetized for the whole procedure. Lovely.
Yep.
And also for the MRI on the previous day, which, by the way, was for 4 hours, and it was like a high definition MRI.
Shows every single
capillary, everything.
Every blood vessel, every single pathway for the surgery team to go through. So,
and I was out for that too, and this was very appealing to me. My decision to go ahead was kind of confirmed when we discovered that Boston Scientific were offering a trial with their fantastic new equipment that was cutting edge at the time, and still is, of course, and would enable me to, first of all, use this state-of-the-art equipment, and also potentially benefit others from my, trial of this equipment, which is now installed and is working great. Particularly appealing was the remote battery charging facility that the precise trial was offering. The idea of having to surgically replace batteries every few years was not a pleasant one. By the way, the life of this battery is up to 25 years.
I mean, that's huge. It's huge.
25
Not every 3 years reimplantation.
Yeah. This was all happening about the middle of last year, just as my symptoms were getting close to intolerable. Dopamine drugs were getting very much less effective, and I found that my ability to behave normally in company was severely restricted. Wherever I went, I had to be sure there was a private place I could hide away in and go to sleep and rest, or something.
Or just
if
hide from everybody else. Yeah.
My tremor, which would become a bout of frenzied tremors sometimes, which are now affecting the entire right side of my body, and would come and go apparently at will. This in turn led Lisa and I into becoming more and more isolated, weren't we?
Not from you.
Yeah, but
Carry
other
on.
people.
Yeah,
I
other
was
people.
sleeping virtually not at all. Fractured sleep time of 1 or 2 hours per night, severe constipation, restless legs syndrome, dyskinesia, speech and swallowing issues, instability on my feet, bradykinesia. It would take me 10 minutes to turn over in bed, and on and on. And poor Lisa was having to
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon.
Was
having to deal with a virtual.
Yeah.
A virtual
wreck of a husband. That was me.
Yeah.
Mr. Wreck.
Sorry, he's trying to follow his script.
Yeah, that's okay.
Well,
while hardly feeling great herself. The time was right to take the next step. The operation itself went as smoothly as I could have hoped. No stroke, no reaction to anaesthetics, and I did in fact wake up. As I had had this irrational fear that once I was put under I would not wake up again. Mm-hmm. I'd never been under, you see, until that time. I got quite a shock when I saw myself in the mirror, though, with this gory cut right across my forehead and blue stitches sticking out of it.
You got a shock.
My first thought was they've lobotomized me, but then again I realised I couldn't have thought that if I had been lobotomized. But it healed very quickly, and within 10 days you could hardly see the scar.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Then followed a torturous 20 days while we waited for my post-op swelling to go down. Mm-hmm. And we couldn't test the equipment in there until after these 20 days, you see. The activation, as they called it, of the Versailles equipment would occur then. I was still on maximum drug dosage during this time, with all the unpleasant side effects raging on.
Disastrous side effects, not unpleasant.
I was, yeah, you're right. I was stressing a little about the activation while at the same time counting the minutes to it. Mm. I need not have concerned myself, because clearly this was a very neurotic time for me. I mean, I was on maximum drugs. I wanted to be sure that all this fuss was going to be worthwhile. What if it didn't work, you know? That's what kept occurring to me. What if this whole thing doesn't work?
Scary.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I need not have concerned myself as it happened. On the morning activation, I was in a dreadful state. Trembling everywhere, hunched, shuffling around with the strangest, scariest, dystonic facial expressions you can imagine. I'll try and pull my face, right?
Sort of like that.
But
a lot worse.
20 times worse, right? I mean, they were bizarre. Anyway.
And that's because you hadn't been allowed any drugs.
Yeah, that's right.
For 18 hours before switch on. Yeah.
And I was hooked up to the computer and was tested through a series of stimulation levels on both sides of my brain. When the second level on the right side was hit, my tremor ceased almost immediately. My face relaxed, and I got up and strolled around as though I had nothing wrong with me at all. There was a number of people in the room that day, including family, Boston Scientific personnel, nurses and doctors, and there was a kind of stunned silence as the dissipation of my symptoms could not have been more dramatic, really. It was a marvellous day for Lisa and I.
It was incredible, yeah.
Since then, there have been a few times when my right arm has trembled a while. It has a mind of its own and can be pretty bloody minded on occasion.
Like him.
But for the most part, it has
behaved.
It has behaved itself quite well, and the relief of my pre-op symptoms have been amazing for me and my family. Yeah. I'm well aware that this is no cure, and that my illness will continue with its relentless progression. But the faithful, but the painful and liberating symptoms have been relieved in a way that improves the quality of my life beyond measure. I want to emphasize that.
Oh, completely.
It really has.
The last 2 years were awful.
I have halved the amount of drugs I was on. Halved them.
Yeah.
That's remarkable when you think what quantities I was on when this started.
Well, before it finished, put it that way. Yeah. You alright?
And this mitigates all of the other unpleasant side effects. This kinesia being the best example of why I hardly suffer anymore. I can now make social arrangements without worrying about whether I'll be able to make it on the day. I can stay up late,
Yay!
have coffee and cookies at midnight,
Yay!
and drive my wife home without her having to be the plum DD.
Or drive me crazy.
Yeah. My confidence is up and I can think more clearly.
Yes.
I feel literally like a new man, and that's the truth of it. That really is the truth of it. Science and dedication that culminate in this Versailles equipment from Boston Scientific, along with the world-class work of the surgical team and their brilliantly skillful implantation, has made this huge difference in my life. If you look at our previous video, you will have seen the profound difference the Versailles does. That profound difference the Versailles...
By turning it off and on, that's in our previous video.
Oh,
that's
I see.
What he means,
yeah.
Okay.
It's been an honour and a privilege for Lisa and I to be here today to tell you our story. Well, we're in our own apartment here. I hope that is pretty honourable, isn't it, darling?
Well, our apartment. Anyway, carry on.
Finally, a word to all the marvellous people who we met from Boston Scientific. What a lovely bunch of people you are. Lisa and I have been around the block, you might say, but we've never come across such a motivated, upbeat, just plain good folks type of guys as you lot. How's that for good English? You deserve to feel good about what you do.
Yeah.
If your company does well, it means that many more people experience these life-changing procedures.
Yeah.
Your good work means lives like mine and Lisa being transformed. We have two small words to say to you all, and believe me, they come from our hearts. Thank you.
Okay, so now I'm going... Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry. I don't know whether to just stop that there or get up my next one, which is that one. Okay, so maybe we can edit that. I don't know. We'll have to see, won't we?
Now you're going to say something.
I am going to be saying something as soon as I've got my gizmo up. Yeah. And what I'm going to do now, first, is okay, because I have to run this thing as well. I'm going to put Pete slightly out of the picture. You can lean over. First, I'd like to start with a question to you. I'm a bit numerically, well, actually, I won't go into all that. Forget it. I am a little dyslexic, but it doesn't really matter. But I just want to start with a question. How many of you, oh dear, you know that's bad.